Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day, and our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. I am Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Aaron Campbell.
Greetings.
Ruben Bressler.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, everything is lovely. I'm still in post-Star Wars shock currently. I'm in every conversation I have about it makes me feel worse about it. Everything I read about it just makes me more frustrated.
Appointment movies are tough. These big billion-dollar movies are difficult because to ingest.
You know, when you first know movies as a kid from the 80s, the first thing I knew was Star Wars. And then there was the prequels, which sucked, but they got better. And then we got this one, which kind of caps off this whole weird life moment. And you're like, what the hell happened?
Being an adult going to a Star Wars movie is bad.
It's a weird experience. That said, we also begin with our choice, the top comment from last week in a segment we call Honorable Mention, where Ruben will tell us who was the most eloquent and letting us know what card we did not choose as one of our top 10 worst cards of the decade. Ruben?
Well, every week we threaten to block one of you, or we threaten to have Aaron block one of you, but we rarely pick a winner from Twitter. So this week, we actually have a chance that you could be blocked already. At Murph Classics. Murph Classics is the winner this week, who writes, the recent top 10 went out with a typo in the title, Evan. So how about the 7-mana do-nothing that is Wit's End, when your opponent discards their hand? If you are control, they should have nothing left by now. If they are control, they have a counterspell. Also, there's a typo in the flavor text.
Yeah, this was actually on my short list because it's just so bad, and 7 mana, and this is it. Like, you can put that into you could even just, like you said, there are other ways to accomplish this. Rakdos' Return, a couple Thoughtseize, a couple Duress. It's just really inefficient. It's 7 mana, and that's assuming that they have a hand worth discarding. Like 7 mana for like a 3-card hand, a 4-card hand. It's just it's not good.
Discarding the whole hand used to be this sort of lauded thing that we can it's a huge effect and blah blah blah, it's gonna be game changing. Well, by the time you get there,
it was mythic too, or like rare?
It was rare.
It's rare.
And
imagine
Ascension,
opening this in your pack at a pre-release. That's terrible.
And then they reprinted it Magic 2013 from Dissension, and you're like,
and that originally printed in Dissension, but the reprint in 2013 is the one that has the error in the flavor text, which, by the way, Scryfall has correct. They put it in their own version correctly, but it's your pathetic ideas lie in shambles, Planeswalker. Where is your arrogant pride now? Which is badass, except for the part that it's spelled wrong.
Except when it's the full irony is just cranked, and you're like, ooh. Pathetic. Well, congratulations to Murph Classics. Please contact Erin on social media, Twitter, in fact, before she blocks you on all that one and the rest of the social medias. Right. She's on it. Thanks again to CoolStuffInc.com for sponsoring this giveaway, and stay tuned for our top 10 list this week, and maybe you can win next week's free gift certificate, which means we get to talk about our top 10 auras. There's some good ones.
900 choices?
And yet...
there were 948 auras so far in the history of Magic. We're coming up on 1K, and yet we have more crossover than an Allen Iverson basketball competition.
I don't think we have too much.
Not crazy.
We've had episodes with worse.
That's true. We have had episodes with worse.
And that's fair. That said, the aura subtype is the enchantment subtype that goes and enchants things, even players, for example.
Yep.
And goes back all the way from the very, very get-go.
Well, I feel like up until recently, wasn't it recently that it was delineated, where before everything was sort of like an enchantment? Yes. And then didn't they make that distinction between like an aura and a thing? Is it just, you know what I mean?
Yeah, relatively recently.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it would be enchant creature, enchant land, enchant player, whatever.
Yes. Formerly, auras were known as local enchantments. And
there we go. And global?
The name was changed in 9th edition.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was also enchant dead creatures.
Under Enchant World?
Yep, Enchant Worlds.
Which are just
enchantments exist. Yeah. There's at least one card that enchants an instant in a graveyard. So,
oh boy.
There's that.
Hope we see that today.
Goodness gracious. That means we're going to start with number 10. And we might as well get started with a card that Ruben just spoke about. My number 10 is
Nice.
a hell of a Magic card. This is one of the cards that I like to like. They're like, man, how crazy was Future Sight? And I'm like, you want to see crazy? You want to go nuts? You want to see some nuts? I'll show you some nuts. Because Spellweaver Volute is nuts. This card is completely insane. Spellweaver Volute is from Future Sight. It is a rare. It is 2 blue and 3 generic mana. It is an enchantment aura. It enchants an instant card in a graveyard. So any
I've never
instant.
heard of this.
Oh, it's beautiful. Listen to this madness.
Bizarre.
Whenever you cast a sorcery, copy the enchanted instant card. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost, and if you do, exile the enchanted card and attach Spellweaver Volute to another instant card in a graveyard. Again, any graveyard, not just yours, anybody's around the table. This card is insane. It's weird. It makes like copies of things, but it doesn't. You want to play sorceries, but you want to enchant instants. It's this is the what the hell happened in Future Sight? Spellweaver Volute happened.
It sounds like Cypher and Haunt had a baby. Like it's I've literally never heard of this card until tonight.
It is absolutely bizarre.
I love
this card. I know that they were trying to combo this with Searing Wind in Modern at one point, which is a 9 mana instant that deals 10 damage to target player. And so like you would just dredge a Searing Wind into your graveyard, you'd play a Spellweaver Volute, and then you'd get Gitaxian Probe, I guess. I don't know.
This is the one and only. This is the one and only thing that enchants something in a graveyard.
Well, it's the one and only thing that enchants an instant.
I'm gonna have to look this up.
Does there something that enchants a sorcery?
They enchant creatures in graveyards.
Well,
and
no,
they bring
but
them back.
Well, no, but even that is an enchant creature, right?
But they were originally printed as enchant dead creature.
And that's fair.
A lot of them were. This is the only one that stays enchanted on something in a graveyard, I think.
Right, and if it gets exiled, if the card gets exiled, so will Spellweaver Volute. It sort of acts like an aura on a creature in that way.
It's absurd.
It's absurd. This card is nuts. This is a card like I have to have this on the top 10 list. We have to be able to say, look, of all the auras in Magic, you need to know about this one. It's insane. All right, that said, Aaron, what's your number 10?
My number 10 just recently came out. It was part of the Commander 2019 set. I had never seen anything like this before in my life. It was featured in the Morph deck, and to my knowledge, this is the only Morph card that allows you to flip the Morph over by sacrificing a creature. It's just so black. I love everything about it. My number 10 is Gift of Doom. So Gift of Doom is 4 colorless and a black. It's an enchantment aura that says enchant creature. Enchanted creature has death touch and indestructible. That is quite a combination. It also has a morph cost, so you can pay 3 colorless to get a 2/2, and then if you want to flip it, you sacrifice a creature, which I've never seen before, and I've seen a lot of ways to flip something. As it's turned face up, you may attach it to a creature. So this is really, really cool. I love the art of just this giant black demon hand coming from the sky, just boop and summon, and you see like this lightning or this ripple effect of it. You see the fog, you see the cloak. It's just so ominous. It makes you feel like you're there, like you feel like you're watching this happen, and it feels really scary. But I love this, just the ability to sacrifice something and then put this on something is really, really cool. I'm trying to find room for this in my She-Ray deck, but it's just so packed I can't really do it. But I love this. I was really happy to open it up, and being able to play with it in Vegas at the Commander party felt really cool.
The only card that appears to be anywhere close to this one is a card called Skirk Volcanist from Scourge. Is that Scourge? Scourge.
No, Legions. Legions is the one with the knives.
No, it's Scourge.
Is it Scourge?
Yeah, I looked it up here. But as I say, that's a 4 mana 3/1 that you morph. You have to sacrifice 2 mountains.
Right.
And when it's turned face up, you deal 3 damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures. So it can't hit players, and you just lost 2 lands. And that is 2003 Magic the Gathering, y'all.
But it's a free ability, so like it was fine.
I mean, yeah, whatever. Yeah. These days, you would like sacrifice 2 mountains, you get like 2 6/6s, you deal 3 to their damage, you'd scry 7, whatever. Who cares?
I have to say, I've been enjoying this spoiler season because you've been losing your mind, Evan, and I can hear it in your voice. Like when you tweet something and you say like, "Good Lord," like I just hear it in your accent. I just imagine you losing
Back in 2002, this effect would have cost 8 times as much and would do half as little.
There's so many words on everything.
On every card.
Everything just does everything. It's unbelievable.
This
oh my
set is
god.
Good.
This set is pushed all to hell. They're all pushed to hell. And then they're just like, here's this Garbo Planeswalker so you can laugh at it. We waited all spoiler season to show it to you.
Even tonight, they just revealed the uncommon for 2 mana, 1 and a green. Your creatures and enchantments cannot be countered. What?
What?
You didn't see that?
No.
Yeah.
What? Oh, for God's sake.
A 2/3 green creature that the first line is creatures. Oh, and by the way, it has some weird Titania effect where like you can make a land a creature equal to the power and toughness of the enchantments you have.
What in the hell is going on? I have no idea. You just told me like some awesome abilities all in a row. This is happening live. I've never heard of this
card.
An
uncommon and 2 mana.
They want like cube level power level in standard. I don't get it. It's weird. Why? Stop it, man. This is like the Yu-Gi-Oh-izing of the game. It's
Evan
freaking me
can't
out.
take anymore.
I can't, man. Why does everything do everything? God almighty. All right. Like, Thirst for Knowledge basically just got reprinted, and that's the last damn thing we're talking about is 3 mana, draw 3 cards is now back into Magic. Just normal, draw 3, pay 3. Hasn't happened in 15 years. Meanwhile, we got Pelucranos, the Infinite Dictionary, of just words just falling off of that thing. God. All right, I'm sorry. I got on a rant there. Ruben, what's your number 10 horror, buddy?
This is all Aaron's fault for starting you on this. He's got a short fuse, and you know how to light it. My number 10
a lot.
is an equally weird aura. This is one that I have a lot of experience casting myself. I've also searched for this with Enduring Ideal, because there was a period there where I played a lot of Enduring Ideal. It's one of my favorite things to go search out of my deck. It is, in addition, the 12th most expensive aura in Magic, according to Scryfall, and I believe it is the only legendary enchant land in Magic. From Betrayers of Kamigawa, ladies and gentlemen, Genju of the Realm.
Oh my God.
Genju of the Realm is a Wooburg legendary enchant land from Betrayers of Kamigawa. Are you still with me? Because there's more. Pay 2 colorless mana, enchanted land becomes a legendary 8/12 spirit with trample. Until end of turn, it's still a land. When enchanted land is put into a graveyard, you may return Genju of the Realm from your graveyard to your hand. So the Genju cycle was good. Like the red one was really good. The white one was really good.
The green one saw play. The Genju
green
of the
one
Cedars.
saw play. I mean, they were good.
Like Genju of the Spires legit won me a Mox. Like that card was legit awesome.
That card's no joke.
Yep.
Genju of the Realm is a little bit of a joke, right? Like it's a little bit weird. It's a little bit off-putting.
It's
like,
amazing this card is worth anything because I assure you, no one gave an absolute crap about this card in 2004.
I have no idea.
Not even a little bit.
But yeah, I've searched this up with my Enduring Ideal when I needed to finish games off and didn't have access to Form of the Dragon or whatever. This card's just super fun and cool, and it's Wooburg. I think it's the only aura. It might be the only aura that's Wooburg, although don't quote me on that. I'm sure there's.
I think Chromanticore technically counts because it's got the bestow.
All right,
it's got the bestow. Anyway,
corner case.
Look.
Anyway, Genju of the Realm is sweet.
This lets me tell my favorite Genju story, which is Genju of the Fields. Genju of the Fields is the one that it's a white, and you can enchant the land. You enchant the plains. You have to enchant a plains. So it says that in the type line. And for 2 mana, you turn into a 2/5 that has whenever this creature deals damage, you gain that much life. It does not gain lifelink. It gains that ability. So when I would stick Tatsumasa the Dragon's Fang on that plains, and I would activate it like 6 times, and I gained like 40 life, my opponent literally took multiple turns and drew infinite cards with greater good at the time, and I still would not lose that game ever because I would just Tatsumasa, Genju.
You can stack it, with like Armadillo Cloak or Exalted Angel, except for in this case, you can just pay 2 colorless to keep gaining. This was a red mage's worst nightmare.
It was a beautiful time. It was fun. Oh my gosh. All right. So, this list is starting out weird. Aaron, what's your number 9 aura?
We're going to cover a lot of different auras today. We're going to cover, enchant land. We're going to cover enchant person and curses and enchant artifacts. And but I have one that I'm pretty sure no one else is going to cover. You can enchant a lot of things, but up until I think a year or two ago, I had never seen someone enchant a library before. An entire library. My number 9 is Animate Library. So Animate Library is from Unstable. It's 4 colorless and 2 blue. Enchantment aura. Enchant your library. Enchanted Library is an artifact creature on the battlefield with power and toughness equal to the number of cards in it. It is still a library. If Enchanted Library would leave the battlefield, exile Animate Library. So, and the flavor text is so good. It says sometimes the books hit back. And so how cool is that you can make your library a creature and crash in? Like, that is so awesome. And I love the art by Raymond Swanland. I love the fact that it has a weird sort of totem armor almost effect on it of if the library would leave the battlefield, you exile Animate Library instead. Is that how that works?
Right. So your library don't die, essentially.
Yeah, but that's so cool. Like, how gangsta is that to be like, I killed someone? Because we've all told like amazing kill stories. If we've won with a Grizzlebrand, or we've won with like you mentioned the Tatsumatsu. But how many times can you say you beat somebody down with your own library? That's awesome.
I can say I've done it once.
Yes, give it
when I entered an unstable draft at Gen Con.
Yeah.
It's tough to see coming. That's for sure. When you go
play it,
tap 6 mana, attack you with, 32, I guess, and turn your library sideways. Yeah, it's really excellent.
Oh, we did get in the red zone with your library. That's pretty choice.
The red zone in this case being READ. That's the red zone.
Wow.
The library is now open.
That's right.
Ruben, what's your number 9?
My number 9 is one of 2 hires on my list.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. That means I get to talk about my aura immediately. Because as we enchant things, they don't really let you do this much anymore. Wizards doesn't like to let you deny people resources to not play Magic, as it turns out. And to play Magic, you need lands. And when you have lands, and I want your lands, I annex your lands. Annex was a absolute tournament staple in the Wildfire decks to deny you as much mana as possible. Annex is
ramp.
And ramp. Yeah, it'll also ramp you because that's what blue does, right? So for 2 blue and 2 generic mana, you can enchant. Yeah, it's an aura with enchant land, and you control enchanted land. That's all. 4 words. You control land. Here, give it here. Thanks. And that doesn't sound problematic. It is very problematic. When you Stone Rain into Annex, the game is often just over. It doesn't matter what you do at that point, and your opponent can't do anything or play anything. So you notice how anything that deals with lands or land denial or land destruction is always symmetrical. You sack this thing, we'll both go get a land or whatever. They don't do this anymore because this is not a fun experience, but it's a great aura. Still good.
Spectacular card. It's weird that they printed one Vuli Acid Moss in blue 10 years before they printed it in green, but here we are. This was just the best 4-mana Stone Rain because it also ramped you. So you could go from 4 to 6. You'd steal their land and then Wildfire the next turn, or play a dragon, or who cares what you did the next turn? You stole their land. It doesn't even matter what you did at that point. I love the flavor. I think that the name is completely accurate. I think the art, or the original art, is spectacular. Unfortunately, the card's just super problematic, and we'll never see its like again.
It's just kind of busted. And it's not like I want them to try to fix this like they did with mind control over control magic.
There's no fixing this.
I don't want this effect ever on any other aura ever. I just want to recognize it as a awesome card. It's a tournament staple. It's nice that it's in Magic and you have this as an option in EDH or whatever. But never, ever again should this be in standard. Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh. Awful. All right, let's move on here to number 8. Ruben, do you have a number 8?
I do. And it's an interesting, strange card. I was looking at the list of the most popular auras in Commander, and it would have never occurred to me that a multicolored green-black legendary enchantment aura would have made the list. This card was nowhere near my consideration of what was going to be the most popular cards in Commander. Shows how much I know about the format. And that's what we talk about, Journey to Eternity.
Yes.
Journey to Eternity is from Rivals of Ixalan, from which Evan and I went to the pre-release. And that is coming up later this week, I believe.
That was 2 years ago that you guys went, and then a year ago that I was there.
So it feels like forever.
Feels
like an eternity.
And you can go see how I got completely destroyed, not noticing the Lord, pumping up another creature.
Not knowing how damaged.
I remember watching you guys on an airplane, because I was on the plane to Santa Clara, and I was watching you guys on my flight, and I was like, oh my god!
It was so cool.
And I've played Journey to Eternity, and it's good.
That's good.
But I guess it has a home, like a permanent home in Commander. So it's a colorless, a black and a green legendary enchantment aura that enchants a creature you control. When the enchanted creature dies, return it to the battlefield under your control, then return Journey to Eternity to the battlefield transformed under your control. It flips over into Atzal Cave of Eternity, which is a legendary land that has tap, add 1 mana of any color, and also has 3 colorless black-green tap. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Obviously, repeatable graveyard recursion is a great deal. The front side of this allows you to rebuy things like Sakura Tribe Elder or other death effects. Particularly good on things that, things like Child of Alara comes to mind with Journey to Eternity. Especially if you can control the sacrificing of Journey to Eternity. It's such a spectacular card. I didn't realize that this was going to be quite so popular.
Oh yeah. The last time I ran into this was at Commander Fest DC, and I was playing against Stibbs, our friend Adam Staborski, his Farika deck. And this card was annoying. Like, he was able to just loop Noxious Gearhulks and loop Green Warden of Marasa, and the game changed once we were able to get rid of it, but it just gave him the ability to really grind in the way that only a black-green deck can. And, I was really excited about this card when it was released, but I don't remember too much about the standard of that time. I just remember it didn't really make a splash. But when you can really, like you said, control it, and you can really build that redundant aristocrat style deck, this card can carry you and take you places.
So was that deck Farika awesome?
I mean, he was getting his Farika on, let me tell you. Just
you fly your Farika flag, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what we got to do.
I'm really glad I didn't have to add a third pun. I stepped up with the second.
Just hopped on that little grenade right there for you. Oh man, Journey to Eternity is fantastic. This is one of those cards that, I like sort of like the penny stocks idea. Every once in a while, I'll just pick up some cards. I'm like, this card's gonna be really good and casual. I'm gonna buy a few. I'm gonna stick it in a box. And so I bought like 20 copies of Journey to Eternity like a couple of years ago, and I was like, let's throw them in a box. They weren't nothing. I bought them like less than $1.
Keep them in a box. Yeah, they're like what, $3 right now. They'll be more if it stays this popular.
Okay, well,
I thought we were just getting our Farika on.
We were just getting our Farika on. I don't know. I like Journey to Eternity. I think it's really fun. I wanted this to be good and constructed. I felt like as long as you didn't get blown out with a removal spell, like that's super powerful, But there wasn't a lot of easy ways to sort of trigger it if you did resolve it on the creature, which kind of sucks. So if there was like a good sack outlet in Standard, I think it might have had an option. But but of course in ADH, it's great. Just go nuts and reanimate stuff forever. All right, Aaron, what's your number 8?
You can build a lot of things. You can build a house, you can build a burger, you can build a bear, you can even build your very own Eldrazi. My number 8 is Eldrazi Conscription. So Eldrazi Conscription is 8 colorless. It is a tribal enchantment Eldrazi aura. That's a lot of text to go in that little bar there. It is an enchanted creature. It's so over the top. Enchanted creature gets +10/+10 and has trample and Annihilator too. This is just, obviously I love sort of over the top effects, and the ability to turn anything you have into an Eldrazi is amazing and ridiculous. It's currently going for like $7 depending on where you shop. And I think it was even recently reprinted, if I remember correctly, but I just love this. The ability to just make anything this big, terrifying creature is just incredible and wonderful. And I love everything about it.
It's just, well, first of all, tribal enchantments. Tribal was a thing. They tried it in Lore 1 and they kept it going, I think, all the way till Rise. I think Rise was the final one. And because after a while, you could start sort of arguing that everything could be a tribal enchantment, something or other after a while. And then you can flavor them beyond that. But ultimately, Eldrazi Conscription got to pair up with Sovereigns of Lost Alara. Now, Annihilator 2 says whenever it attacks, defending player sacrifices 2 permanents, because that's fair magic. That was fair, good magic. They put that on a common, y'all. They put that ability on a common. It was disgusting.
I'm sure Pauper is super happy about that. Yeah, Sovereigns of Lost Alara was a 6-mana 4/5 that allowed you to go search for this and put it on your Sovereigns for free. And you didn't get the Annihilator trigger 2 the first time.
Right, because it was already attacking at that point. But
it's
Sovereigns,
a 14, 15, or whatever.
Yeah, it's super huge. And particularly if you put on something like a Baneslayer Angel or whatever at the time. Sovereigns of Lost Alara have an Exalted, and then saying whenever a creature you control attacks alone, you go search for an aura, stick it on a creature you control. So, high five.
That was a Bant Conscription was the deck where that was most popular.
He's put all the mythics together and all the rares and just played that. So, Eldrazi Conscription, the Rise of the Eldrazi was supposed to be the big giant monster set. And
it was.
This is how you make one. You just stick an Emrakul on your head and rush out there.
It was in Ultimate Masters, too. And so I enjoyed seeing all the tweets from people or the pictures from people of what they strapped this to. And bam, instant Eldrazi.
Mm-hmm. I liked your, I've seen a horse fly. I've seen a house fly. I've even seen a dragonfly.
Yeah.
But I ain't never seen an Eldrazi fly.
Goodness. That's a pretty awesome flavor text. So, all right. Well, for my, we'll say this, for my number 8, we're going to the classics. We're going all the way back. We're going all the way back to limited edition alpha. A copy of this card is going to run you about $20. If that's what you're looking to do in alpha. This is an ability they don't give you no more. They don't give it to you in base sets. They don't give it to you in standard sets. But they will give it to you all the way up through Commander 2018. It's still a fantastic card. It's still infinitely playable. Because Wild Growth is such a powerful, terrific ability. It's still good to this day. It's still awesome. There's a couple of things I could have chosen here, but I chose this one as sort of the 1 mana accelerant that they don't give you anymore. Wild Growth is 1 green mana for an enchantment aura that has enchant land on it, and whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional green. And now I'll read the alpha version because it's kind of hilarious. When tapped, target land provides 1 green mana in addition to the mana it normally provides. Yeah. That's good alpha talk.
This was my number 9.
Nice.
Yeah, these effects are actually, they see competitive play. If you play Deathcloud decks in Modern, or you play the Titan Shift decks, Ponza decks love their sort of Wild Growth effects. Enchantress decks love this. Even if it's sort of redundant, you don't really need the mana. It's still a way to trigger your Enchantresses. It'll still give you an extra mana with your Sarah's Sanctums. But we just don't get them anymore. Nowadays, we get them and they're a little overcosted, where you get like the, you'll pay like 2 and a green, and you get like a gift of something, and it's like,
Paradise.
Right, you'll get like 2 life with it or something. But yeah, we will never have it this good again.
Yeah, it's essentially it's too it's just too much mana too early. Fertile Ground is another one that was printed for a very, very long time and was kind of sort of the fixed version of this that came out in Urza's Saga.
Utopia Sprawl.
Yeah, and those basically the exact same thing. But again, it's just kind of too much acceleration. At least they felt at the time. But these days,
especially Wild Growth, which is essentially Llanowar Elves that can't be bolted.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's just the ultimate Llanowar Elves at that point.
Yeah, totally.
So card is absolutely great, super classic, and terrific. Let's move on here to number 7. Aaron, what's number 7?
My number 7 is just beautiful design. Like, I don't remember seeing anything like this prior to its release, and I think we've only seen it once since then. There was a version of this in Modern Horizons, which I thought was really cool, and I just think it's beautiful. It has seen play in Standard. It also sometimes sees play in the sideboard of burn decks, because they typically have a hard time dealing with really big things like Wormcoil engines, and so this is a really clean, efficient way to deal with things like that, or maybe even a Tarmogoyf. My number 7 is Chain to the Rocks. So Chain to the Rocks is from Theros, is an enchantment aura for 1 white mana, which is a beautiful cost. When Chain to the Rocks enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls until Chain to the Rocks leaves the battlefield. How cool is that? You have the story of, I think it was Hephaestus? Wasn't that the
Well, Prometheus was chained to the rock.
There we go.
In the Caucasus.
Thank you. Yeah.
Because he gave the gift of fire to man.
Yeah, and then the vultures came and picked at him. Okay, yeah, so this is a really pivotal moment in Greek mythology. This is a really iconic character that you look at this and you remember, even if you don't get the name right, like I got it wrong, you still remember the basic gist of the story. But this was just really great removal at 1 mana and it enchants a mountain you control. They haven't been printing land destruction like they used to anymore, so your mountain's probably not going anywhere. And it just deals with anything, no matter how big it is. It doesn't get a death trigger. It's just a clean exile. There's no path nonsense. You don't get a land. There's no swords nonsense. You don't get the life. It's just so clean and efficient, and I love it.
I think this is just one of the most flavorful cards in Magic, like ever.
Yeah.
It's so easy to grok. Like I could explain it to like my mom. I'm like, here's a mountain card. Here's Chained to the Rocks. I put it on the mountain. While I have the mountain, that thing can't go away. You understand that, and that is so sweet and universal. And it's the best. I thought it was the best thing in Theros in terms of explaining a Greek story on a Magic card.
It's a great way to show someone who knows nothing about Magic how you can turn a story into a game mechanic.
Right.
And Theros is really good for that in general. Cards like Rescue from the Underworld and Chained to the Rocks do a great way of telling the story without needing the flavor text. And Chained to the Rocks is the cleanest example. And it also does something totally unique, but it does it in a way that is completely within the color pie of it's a 1 white mana exile, which we've seen before, but it requires the mountain for you to chain it to. And it's, I just love it.
Yeah, it's absolutely sweet. All right, Ruben, what's number 7?
Without looking, do you think you could name the most expensive aura in the history of Magic? And by the way, it's not close.
It's not Eldrazi Conscription, clearly.
The second most...
Do you mean mana cost or price? Like dollars?
Cost for dollars.
Oh.
Dollars.
The number one most expensive?
Number one most expensive. The second place is $24 right now, according to my resources here. This one is $128 a piece.
Now, is it expensive because of the set, like how old it is?
It's partially expensive because of the set and how old it is.
And
it's
because
also,
of the reserve list?
It's part of the reserve list, of course. It is a rare.
Oh, I know what card you're talking about. This card is stupid.
And it's extremely popular in Old School. It's extremely popular in Commander. And it's got some broken combos around it. Because it's Power Artifact.
Oh! Yeah.
Power Artifact is my number 7. It costs blue for an enchantment aura. It says Enchant Artifact. Enchanted Artifact activated abilities cost 2 less to activate. This effect can't reduce the amount of mana an ability costs to activate to less than 1. So, of course, this goes infinite with cards like Grim Monolith, Basalt Monolith, theoretically with something like Mana Vault. There are a bunch of ways to go nuts with this card. The easiest two are the monoliths, of course.
Is this legal in Legacy? I feel like I saw it in a Legacy.
It is legal in Legacy.
It is. Okay, because I remember seeing it and going, what the heck?
Yeah, you could do infinite mana in Legacy with just Basalt Monolith and this thing. Just
That's right.
And you're good.
And for the low cost of 2 blue mana and the low cost of $128, because this is from Antiquities. But online, because it was printed in Masters Edition 4, you can get it for a little under 2 ticks.
Man, because back in the day, I used to have tons of copies of this card. Like, no one cared about this card. No one thought it was that good. Yeah. No one really collected it. No one played it because it had rotated out of Standard, and no one really played Vintage back then because no one could afford anything.
Right.
But it's a hell of a card. Speaking of a hell of a card, we got one that has won a Pro Tour. It's so good. Right now, it's starting to see, it's starting to climb. I think people are starting to recognize, oh man, this thing is so efficient at what it does. It kind of came out of nowhere, showed up in Rivals of Ixalan. You're my,
That's right.
Pre.
Some Rivals hype.
Yeah, some good Rivals
hype. And not
hype.
in the worst cards of all time episode.
I know, right? It's crazy because this card, I think it just kind of crept up on everybody. But once you saw it happen, you only took one time when they said, okay, I'm going to play a 1 mana evasive guy, and then I'm gonna stick a Curious Obsession on it, and I'm going to beat you to death with it and draw cards at the same time. And Curious Obsession says trans rights, much like Terramander, because it's great. Curious Obsession's great. It's a 1 blue uncommon enchantment aura from Rivals of Ixalan that has enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. At the beginning of your end step, if you didn't attack with a creature this turn, sacrifice Curious Obsession.
Who would have ever thought that mono green crappers, and that's the polite name for this deck, would have been competitive and would have done well and would have led to some of the most interesting games at a Pro Tour. I remember watching Autumn Burchett play this deck, and it looks simple. People were watching and going, oh, I know what Autumn's going to do next. Autumn's going to do blah. And just pulling off these next level plays with these cards. It was like a $30 deck. There wasn't anything to it. But this card was the engine that really kept kept the deck going because it was able to refuel itself in a way that aggressive decks are normally not able to, and with no downside. Oh, I have to attack. I'm doing that anyways, and I'm probably doing that with something that is some form of evasion. Like, it was just a beautiful card.
Like, I want you to go check out Autumn Burchett's finals, and I want you to watch it. That was
last game of the finals.
The last game of the finals. Like, literally, I've watched a lot of Pro Tours. I've seen a lot of Pro Tour matches. I've seen a lot of Pro Tour matches that went crazy and ways you wouldn't expect. Never have I been like, this is the obvious line of play, and then they did something totally different. And then I said again,
3 turns in a row.
Yes. And I'm over going like, okay, well, now we're going to do, and then they do something totally different. And I'm like losing my mind, and it's working.
And it was Curious Obsession based, because what happened was Autumn played a turn 1 mana, or turn 1/1/1, and untapped, and we were like, oh, they have Curious Obsession. Obviously, that's what's going to happen.
Right.
No, didn't do that, just attacked. Next turn. Oh, now they have counter backup with Curious Obsession. That's what... No, just attack again. Waited till the control opponent had 4 mana to play the Curious Obsession to get the Crux turn, because the opponent wanted to cast his Chemister's Insight, and was able to sneak in this Curious Obsession when they otherwise would not have been able to. It was a masterclass in tempo, which is what this card is.
Yep. And there's another sort of version. There's a white-blue version of this coming in
the next,
the
and
next
Curiosity, the original version, was popular for a half second in the mid 90s. So this type of effect has a long history.
But it didn't give you +1/+1. So that's the thing. All right, let's move on here to number 6. Ruben, what's your number 6?
My number 6 is a card that I love. I adore. It's not particularly popular in like the zeitgeist. It hasn't won a Pro Tour. It hasn't been close to banning, but it might be the aura that I have cast the most from like a set. Because sometimes you have cards that are printed in multiple sets. But I think I've cast more, specifically Ravnica City of Guilds Faith's Fetters than any other card. I love Faith's Fetters. Faith's Fetters, 3 colorless and a blue, enchant permanent, or 3 colorless and a white, enchant permanent. Any permanent. When it enters the battlefield, gain 4 life. And enchanted permanent can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. Reprinted a number of times. You can get your copy for a dime. It doesn't matter. But the card itself just does all the things you want it to do. It shuts something down, but you don't lose the tempo by spending the 4 mana, because you're able to recoup some of that life. You're able to gain 4 life to be able to make sure you don't die just by shutting one of the things off. You're able to turn off a Rakdos Guild Mage. You're able to turn off a troublesome artifact that you might not otherwise be able to deal with your regular removal. This card does everything.
I seem to recall this being in the cube at one point. I don't cube very often, but the few times I have done the cube on Magic Online, I usually end up with this card, and I'm always happy to see it.
Like, this card stopped Umezawa's Jitte back in the day. This was what you had to stop it with. This is such a terrific effect. It answers sort of everything, and that's what I felt White was so good at. I felt like, in a world around Ravnica, we just got an Oblivion Ring, so it was like Oblivion Ring and Faith's Fetters. We're like, okay, this is what White's going to do. And so they kind of give us Oblivion Ring sort of sometimes now, but they don't give us Faith's Fetters. They don't give us enchant this thing, gain some life, and that thing doesn't do anything anymore. And that was just huge for a variety of reasons. They tap out, you catch them with their pants down on something, they can't use it to sacrifice whatever. Like, all that stuff was important. It's great gameplay, brings you back on the tempo. Like, I love Faith's Fetters, and I would love to see a reprint sometime soon, honestly. Like, and it doesn't even need to get better. Like, in this world of overpowered cards, no, this is still a great rate that you would still be happy to play in standard. 4 mana, gain 4 life, that thing shuts up. Thanks. All right, Aaron, what's your number 6?
My number 6 was a standard all-star when it was standard legal. It was a force in the mono black decks, not just because of what it did, because it did what it did very well, but also the pips mattered. And this was something that gave you 2 little pips of black for your Garys or for things of that nature. And it was also fun because it led to some interesting interactions with Pithing Needle, which people usually got wrong. My number 6 is Underworld Connections. So Underworld Connections is 1 colorless and 2 black. It's an enchantment aura from Return to Ravnica that's that says enchant land. Enchanted land has tap, pay 1 life, draw a card. So if you're trying to pithing needle this, don't name Underworld Connections. You have to name the land. And people always did this wrong, which was hilarious. But this was really, really good. You know, we've seen sort of these, you know, it started obviously with cards like Necropotence, you know, when they've given us sort of black card draw, things like Read the Bones. But this was something that you could activate when you wanted to. Sometimes you didn't even have to, or if you didn't need the mana, or if you didn't need the cards. But when you did, this was really, really great. It gave you the pips that you needed for Mono Black Devotion. It was just a great card. Saw a lot of play. I use it in Commander even. Yep. It was just a really cool way to give black some much needed card draw.
It's the 7th most played card in Commander, or 7th most played aura.
So 75 cents, yeah.
It's spectacular. I mean, Phyrexian Arena effects are indelible to black. This is one that you can control. Once you get down to single digits or a dangerous life total, you can turn it off. You're not in danger of dying to your own arena, your own Bitter Blossom, your own Dark Tutelage, whatever it is, what have you. You can just use that land now. Underworld Connections also being able to be used immediately. You don't have to wait till your next upkeep. You can just late game, we drew an Underworld Connections, pay 3, tap the land, redraw, right? Like we've got 10 lands in play. We've still got another chance at this. Underworld Connections is a spectacular card.
I would consider this one of a very, very like almost perfect design, because you have to pay mana to get it out, obviously, but you also have to kind of give up a land. You can get that land back, so you don't always have to lose life like the Phyrexian Arena problem. Right. But if you're going to use it, you can't use that land anymore. And like there were multiple tournament situations where I said, "What are you naming?" And they went, Underworld Connections. I'm like, you sure? And they said, yep. And I said, Judge. And so I, call a judge over, like, I'm going to tap my swamp to draw a card and lose a life. And then there's sadness because you give them the chance. You're like, are you sure? Like, I can't help it.
Enough rope.
Can't help if you don't know how your cards work, man. I'm sorry. This card for my number 6 is one of my favorite cards. It's first of all, it's absolutely gorgeous. That's the thing that always blew me away about this card. They only printed it. Well, technically they printed it twice because it's in the mystery booster, but whatever. There's a million things in the mystery booster. But the card in and of itself is so crazy powerful. This is a mythic aura. Ain't a lot of mythic auras, y'all. But one of them turns you into a friggin' angel, and it's awesome. Angelic Destiny is from M12. It's 2 white, 2 generic mana. It is an enchant creature that gets +4/+4, has flying and first strike, and it's an angel in addition to its other types. And when enchanted creature dies, return Angelic Destiny to its owner's hand. Something's going to be an angel. Something's going to get the angel's going to have the destiny of being an angel, and you're going to get that thing back, and you get to play it again. Absolutely fantastic. This thing is like $8. Everyone loves this card because people love angels, and this basically gives you an angel. It literally makes it an angel in addition to its other types.
Anybody can be an angel.
if Destiny chooses you.
Grand effect, like the name evokes greatness and awe, and then you look at the ability, the fact that there will always be something, the sort of Rancor like effect of it's really great, but you get that one jerk that's like dies to Doomblade, all right, kill that to Doomblade, the next one, and the one after that, like it just keeps going.
Every little idiot becomes a big, enormous, ridiculous threat for the rest of the time that it's in play. This card was a powerhouse in Standard, one of my favorite things to cast. Every time I saw it on the other side of the table, I thought there was no way I was ever winning that game, because even if you kill the creature, they get the Angelic Destiny back, and every 0/1 that they get for the rest of time is monstrous. The Angelic Destiny, I want to see it return. I would really love to have that card back.
I think it's sweet, and I mean, God, these days it'd probably give it lifelink too, because why not? Who cares, y'all? Who cares? Just put words on cards. Just the words on cards. All right, it's fine. Angelic Destiny is great, though. I think it's also one of the, literally one of the best sealed cards of all time. This thing will not only turn a game around, it will win you the game at the same time. It's absolutely ludicrous. All right, let's move on here to number 5. Ruben, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is the last higher that I have.
Oh, no. Aaron, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is a card that saw a little bit of standard play, but has now become quite the force and pioneer of all things. It's currently going for about $2 to $3, and it's another one of those enchantments that, we talked about the Angelic Destinies and the Eldrazi Conscriptions and all of the fun things that you can sort of strap this to and then throw them at people. And I can't think of anything that does that as good as this one. My number 5 is Ensoul Artifact. So Ensoul Artifact is from Magic 2015's core set. It is 1 colorless and a blue. It's an enchantment aura. Enchant Artifact. Enchanted Artifact is a creature with base power and toughness 5/5 in addition to its other types. You can strap this to a Darksteel Citadel. You can strap this to an Ornithopter. Like, the things you can do with this. And the art is just so hilarious. We're in the flavor text of, too often some self-described genius comes up with a labor-saving device that ends up creating far more work. And so you just sort of see this giant scissors just kind of attacking a village or whatever. But Ensoul Artifact is a deck in Pioneer. Blue-red Artifact. It saw a little bit of standard play as well. Didn't really make too many waves, but it's just a fun deck. Some people really, really like this concept. And in a fledgling format, if it continues, this could continue to be a deck.
I was living with Eric Froelich at the time when Channel Fireball came to the ensuing Pro Tour with Blue-Red Ensoul Artifact. Lots of Ghostfire Blades and Whirler Rogues, and everything was a 5/5 Ensouled Artifact. And I remember walking from my bedroom to the kitchen, watching Channel Fireball develop this deck, thinking to myself, are they really doing this? Like, I'm like watching them playtest this deck, and I'm seeing proxy like at the time they were using cards like Keeper of the Lens. And I'm like, what is going on in our lives where this is the deck, right? Like, it was staggering. It was only one of a couple moments in my life where I saw a deck that would later sort of come out of nowhere. Like, not a ton of people saw this coming at that Pro Tour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was a joke. Like, this card was not taken seriously. This card was like, oh, what are you going to do? Put it on an Ornithopter's Law, and then you do, and you kill them with it. And, but for real, that was the joke. We were like, that's a 2-card, blah, blah, blah. You're never going to bother to do that. And it's like, yeah, buddy, we are. And on turn 2, I got a 5/5 flyer. Hope you can deal with it. Because this thing's just like, it just outperformed, I feel, anybody's expectations. Selling the scissors won't come and get you. Yeah. and that's scary. All right, so I wanted to give it up to the Enchantress deck. Okay, the Enchantress deck is important. It's huge in Magic history. It's huge as a sort of perennial, kind of one of those epic archetypes that will be around forever. You're always going to be able to play an Enchantress deck. There's too many tools out there not to one day dabble in Enchantress if that's what you like to do. So if I want to pick one enchantment aura that would say, hey, this card is for your super cool Enchantress deck, I wanted to choose Ancestral Mask. Ancestral Mask, which also has Magali as the most recent art, by the way.
That she slid into my DMs the other day?
I saw that.
Yeah, look at
what does she want with me?
I don't know.
I don't know, but you better ship that address.
That's right.
All I'm saying, well, that came out weird. All right,
it came out perfect is how it came out.
Ancestral Mask is a fantastic aura. It is a green and 2 generic mana for an uncommon. Originally printed as a common in Mercadian Masks.
Right.
Uncommon later in Eternal Masters and the Mystery Booster, but enchant creature. An enchanted creature gets +2/+2 for each other enchantment on the battlefield. You play a bunch of enchantments, you draw a bunch of cards, you play this thing, and your Enchantress is monstrous, and you kill them with it.
Yeah, this one is one of the few that has interesting crossover, obviously, with Pauper, because the original printing was in Mercadian Masks.
It's true.
And so you can have enormous Bogles in your Bogles deck. It has interesting crossover between Enchantress and Bogles, because it's seen play at various times because of how old it is. It's got that old school provenance to it. Doesn't see a ton of play these days. Pretty outclassed by your Daybreak Coronets and your other, it's not going to see play in Legacy Enchantress where you have...
Ethereal Armor was my original pick for this slot.
Sure.
Because that's another huge one in Bogles and in Enchantress type decks, whatever. But Ancestral Mask also kind of did that divide. It has the Pauper angle, which I thought was cool. It's still a great card.
Really great card.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on here to number 4. Well, out of 900 something auras, it just so happens that somebody, I believe this is Ruben, and I have the very same exact number 4. Not number 5, not number 7, not number 8, number 4. Yep. I got to talk about this card today on my Twitter feed.
Oh.
Today I got to mention how cool this card was due to an interaction with a newly spoiled card from Theros because it's dumb. The new birthing pod enchantment thing, which is crazy.
Oh.
Yep.
I know, right? Ruben, what was our number 4?
So our number 4 is Rancor, which comes in at rank 4. And it's on my list at this spot for a number of reasons. It's indelible in my history, but also from a stats standpoint, it's the only aura to make the round of 64 of the Magic bracket, and it's one of the 10 most played auras in Commander. He's playing all manner of aura centric decks, from Estrid to Uriel to whatever and what have you. In addition to it being the centerpiece of any stompy deck worth its salt, goes turn 1 idiot, turn 2 Rancor, play another idiot. This is all you want to be doing, is putting this on a Wild Dogs, putting this on a Pouncing Jaguar, putting this on an elf, whatever, it doesn't matter. Put this on your Nettle Sentinel. And yeah, it's pretty spectacular. So the way that Rancor works, for those of you playing along at home, is it is a 1 green mana enchantment aura, originally a common from Urza's Legacy, one of my favorite sets of all time. Reprinted a number of times. Enchanted creature has +2/+0 and has trample, and when Rancor is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return Rancor to its owner's hand. With Hatred Outlives the Hateful, one of the most iconic flavor texts that they've kept from the old days.
The first time I ever played with this card, I was playing the mono green Predator Ooze deck from Innistrad Standard, where you would play this in like Ulvenwald, the fighting thing.
Tracker.
And so you would just strap this onto a Predator Ooze and be like, "Oop, fight check, counter." And you'd slap a Rancor on it and have a really, really good time.
Wizards gave us Infect and Rancor for a very magical 3 months until Scars of Mirrodin rotated out of Standard. I love the fact that they reprinted Rancor in Explorers of Ixalan, which was a bad product. It wasn't the actual set. It's bad. But they didn't print it with the flavor text. But then they went back in Masters 25 and put the flavor text back as they should.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because 4 words, Hatred Outlives the Hateful, is amazing, perfect, iconic, great. Like, the power level in this thing is still sick. The power level with that new enchantment thing where you sacrifice an enchantment and go get a creature with +1 convert mana cost, like, it's absolutely ridiculous. With something that's going to continue to go back to your hand over and over and over again, like Rancor does.
It adds this inevitability to it, similar to Angelic Destiny, in terms of you can deal with the creatures, but you still, then anything they draw is live to slap this thing on, and then you are right back where you started. And so it takes very unique answers to be able to deal with this that, unfortunately, a lot of decks at the time just didn't have. You put this on a Strangleroot Geist, and it was like, oh goody, it has Undying. Like, it was just obnoxious.
And one of the big problems with auras has always been what happens when you just 2-for-1 yourself. When the creature dies, you just lose it. Your giant strength doesn't go anywhere. Your curious obsession that I kill you mid-combat before you can protect it doesn't go anywhere. This allows you to recoup that card advantage. It's cheap, it's efficient, it's spectacular.
It's been reprinted, if you count the Magic Online promo, 14 different times.
Wow.
That's a lot. And that's great because it's a great card.
Yeah.
And another one that's just like perfect power level. It's crazy how that works out. That said, Aaron, what's number 4?
My number 4.
Your number 4.
I was channeling Fabiano there for a second. My numbers, the forests. So my number 4 is a very crucial piece of any merfolk deck, but typically you see it in modern. Because when you look at a merfolk deck on the surface, it's a good idea in theory, where like someone's telling you about it. They're like, so we're going to give all your merfolk lots of +1/+1s. We got lots of lords, lots of crusades. We're going to give them all island walk. And you're like, wait a minute. What happens if your opponent's not playing blue? Like, what happens then? Well, they have an answer for it. And this card is very good at cutting you off of mana if you are playing a greedy Jund deck or you're playing a Tron deck. And it also solves the problem of how do we make that island walk matter? My number 4 is Spreading Seas. So Spreading Seas is 1 colorless and a blue. It's an enchant land. When Spreading Seas enters the battlefield, draw a card, which is very important. An enchanted land is an island. So all of those island walk merfolk now can just sort of get through. which is a really great way to break board stalls. It's also just a cantrip. We've talked many times in the show about how just adding the line of draw a card can immediately turn a card from trash into something playable. They run 4 copies of this. You never leave the house without it if you're playing Merfolk. And it's just a really good way for it to punch through. If you're also doing the devotion thing, sometimes a Merfolk deck will play Master of Waves. That's a blue pip for you. That can lead to another elemental that you get in addition to all the pips that you get from your lords. Just a beautiful card. I've lost to this more times than I can count of cutting me off of mana when I'm playing Ad Nauseam or when I'm playing Dredge and you have no way to deal with this. Sometimes it just does what it does, and sometimes there's more to it.
Let's see.
Sorry, go ahead.
Worlds 2011, I think it was. There was one in Rome. One Gerald Thompson, pro player at the time. Yeah, Mr. Jerry had
Jerry.
Yeah, Jerry's great. Jerry broke it, essentially. He figured out the card that would bust Jund up, because Jund was so hard on its mana. If you could bust up its mana just for a couple turns with Spreading Seas, not only was it replacing itself, it was locking your opponent out of playing things like Sprouting Thrynax when they just couldn't get that 3 color of mana put together the right way. It was brilliant, and it's weird. It's never been reprinted. It was only reprinted as Zendikar that one time. I think it's great. I would like to see this reprinted myself. I thought it was a really cool sort of attack angle. Like, what Spreading Seas would be great right now. Like, you could probably keep Field of the Dead in Standard if Spreading Seas was in Standard,
Yeah, Spreading Seas is spectacular. It was so good that people were like, maybe it's just a main deck card, because they were sideboarding it for a second.
Right.
And they were like, maybe it's a main deck card. And they were like, oh man, this is better than a main deck card. Maybe we should run Convincing Mirage also. Yeah. Which doesn't even replace itself. And then they're like, wow, that's really good. Maybe we should just have only this as our only 2-drop and then just cascade into it with as many cascade effects as we possibly can. And then the deck Spread 'em happened. Which the whole point of the deck was turn 2 Spreading Seas, turn 3 Cascade Spreading Seas, turn 4 Cascade Spreading Seas. Like, that was all the deck did. It was just like Bloodbraid Elf into Ardent Plea into Convincing Mirage was the play pattern of the deck. And it was like, what is happening in Standard? Well, I'll tell you what was happening in Standard is Sprouting Thrynax cost Jund mana, Raging Ravines and Lava Claw Reaches were, and Jungle Shrine or whatever Savage Lands were crazy all over the place, and Jund was all over the place. And so if you could just hit him in the kneecap and make him stumble for a second, like a monk, running around a slow fighter, then you can do things.
I've seen multiple tournament matches, during that time, where people would have 2-3 Sprouting Thrynax in their hand when they lost. It's like they could just have that 1 mana. That's all they needed. Couldn't get it. All right, let's move on here to number 3. We're in our top 3. Ruben, what's your number 3?
So I like to sometimes theme my picks. Like sometimes if it's a 3-drop, I'll put it at number 3, or if it costs 8, if it's like an 8-drop, I'll put it at 8, or if it's 2 Pro Tours, I'll put it at 2. This one has won 3 Pro Tours, so I put it at 3.
Jeez.
It's an OG card. It is still in the cube, by the way, after being originally printed in alpha. It's Control Magic.
Nice.
Control Magic is 2 colorless blue. You control enchanted creature.
That's what it does.
That is what it does.
Yep.
It is named Control Magic, and it is Control Magic, and there's no bones about, like, what else do you want it to do? It's what it does. And there it is.
Yeah. And it has become a verb. We've seen, variations on this throughout the years. There was the one that gave something infect. There was Spirited Away, the flying thing. Up recently, we had In Bolus's Clutches, where you can now control anything. It doesn't matter as long as it's a permanent. And in addition to that, it becomes legendary. And so the fact that it's managed to survive all these years, the fact that it's still, I think we see it reprinted in like commander decks, and it's still just a fine card that sees lots of play, does something very clean and efficiently. Yeah. I love it in my Muldrotha deck as a way to just sort of permanently deal with things. And if you deal with the aura, you get to bring it back. And I love it. I think it's brilliant and very blue.
Yeah, I mean, basically, and it'll be fun because this was my alternate for my number 3. But Control Magic they try to reprint it as Mind Control for 5 mana, literally just 2 blue and 3 generic for the same effect. Too good, just way too good. God, it was so busted and limited. It was ridiculous. And then Confiscate, which later essentially became In Bolus's Clutches, because Confiscate was 6 mana, control a permanent, and In Bolus's Clutches was
Which has also won a Pro Tour, by the way. Confiscate.
Yeah, that card's fantastic. So controlling things, this was one of those cards that, way back in the day when I first started playing, was kind of an expected card to be reprinted. This was very much sort of like a dark ritual effect. This was sort of a lightning bolt effect. You're like, okay, this is what blue does. Blue takes your stuff and they counter your spells, and then they, they'll annex your lands or whatever. That type of thinking was what blue got to do, was take your things and take your permanents. And they still kind of do, because blue gets to do everything. But, control magic is still terrific in and of itself, and is a fantastic bookend to my number 3. Because you know what I love about control magic? You know what I love about control magic?
What's that?
When it's free.
Yeah.
You like freeze control magic? You like a little treachery? A little treachery gonna work all right? That's still in the cube, by the way. Still in the cube. Will forever be in the cube. Is on the reserve list, which makes me sad. It's currently $24. It will probably be more expensive in the future.
Yikes. This is remember earlier when I said what the most expensive one was Power Artifact? This is the second most expensive aura.
Yes, it is. Treachery is 2 blue, 3 generic mana, a rare from Urza's Destiny. It has enchant creature. When Treachery enters the battlefield, you untap up to 5 lands, and you control enchanted creature.
Why?
It is tough to not pick this out of a cube pack. It is. Something's going to have to be very special for me to not get this. This was my number 5.
Nice.
I seem to recall, maybe it was one of you. I seem to recall someone told the story about playing an Iona and naming black and then getting Treachery.
That was me.
Not me.
That's what happened. No, I was playing a blue-black deck, and I was like, okay, what do I name? Well, the black got a lot of removal, right? So I'm like, okay, fine, I'll name black. And then Treachery, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm flipping keyboards.
Sick to my stomach.
It was gross. I got completely destroyed. This is one of my most number 1 picked cards, pick one, pack one, out of the cube.
Completely
it's good.
Unreasonable.
It's completely unreasonable. Do you have 2 blue and 3 other mana things, you get this for free. It's unbelievable. It's just ridiculous. And no matter how often I go back and see the Urza cards that let you untap lands, do they ever make any sense to me? Just at all. That was okay. I don't get it, man. Whew. The drugs were strong. All right, Aaron, what was your number 3?
There aren't many enchantments, specifically auras, that I will scoop to. But usually when I see this card, I know that if I have no way to immediately deal with it, I've probably lost the game. It's kind of like Sphinx's Revelation, in that you haven't actually lost, but you've pretty much lost, and you might as well just pack it up. It comes with a hoop, so it doesn't just happen the way you want it to. You gotta do a little bit of setup, but if you can get the setup going, you can easily take over a game with this card. My number 3 is Daybreak Coronet. So Daybreak Coronet is 2 white. It is originally printed in Future Sight. It's an enchantment aura. Enchant creature with another aura attached to it. So if something already has to be on it, whether it be a Rancor or an Ethereal Armor, which isn't too hard to do if you're playing a dedicated Bogles deck. But if you can do that, enchanted creature has +3/+3 and first strike and vigilance and lifelink. Oh my God. If you can get this thing suited up enough, they're always going to be able to attack. They will always be able to block. There is lifelink attached to that. That thing is going to be so far out of removal range. It probably has hexproof. You just cannot come back from that. You are going to get buried. You are not going to have any way to reasonably block with this. You're just kind of throwing chump blockers out at this point. It's just a devastating card. It was actually kind of expensive for a while until it got reprinted. But if you're playing Bogles or doing any sort of Voltron style Enchantress, you don't want to leave the house without this. And if your opponent's not ready, you might as well just pack it up because you're never going to come back from it.
This was one of those cards that was very expensive. It got to $20-$25 or something. Yeah. Because they just didn't print that many of them. Right. There was only so many that are open in Future Sight. And also, go and take a look, if you listen to the podcast, obviously, go take a look at the Future Sight version of Daybreak Coronet. Look at the artwork. Look how unique and almost almost, I don't know how
it kind of reminds me of a cave painting.
It's I feel like
I'm almost looking. Yeah, it just looks like something you'd see in a museum, maybe. Dare I say, maybe even Jesus? It's just.
but again, just looking for me, it's also the art style. We don't get art like this anymore. No. This was one of the last sort of almost not impressionist, or maybe not sort of kind of vague-esque, where there's not a defined style guide here where they need to be in a certain world with a certain thing right behind them or whatever.
Keep it vague. Yeah, this is Scott Hampton, who, this is his art style, is sort of this impressionist watercolor, is what I'm going to call it.
Okay.
Which you've seen in Lash Out, probably, if you're familiar with Herbal Poultice, although the Pauper players are going to know what Spider Silk Armor looks like.
Sure.
It's very storybook. It's very impressionist and much different than anything that we've seen, and is iconic. And now he's only done 18 pieces of art by my count, so you don't see a ton of them, but Daybreak Coronet being the most indelible.
But for the old school, he did Keeper of Kukus and Kukus.
And Kukus, that's right.
We used to get the keepers and the things that they were keeping in the same
Cuckoo
set.
for Kukus.
There you go.
Right.
All right. So that is our number 3. We all together now get to do number 2.
Do we all share the same number 2 and the same number 1?
I believe we all share the same number 2 and the same number 1.
Now, to be fair, when I was building this list, the first thing I did was put number 1 at number 1, put number 2 at number 2, and figure out the rest.
Yes.
Like,
same.
it seemed very obvious to me. And clearly, you all came to the same result.
It was pretty straightforward in terms of the card I felt sort of deserved the number 1 spot, and then the card I felt you couldn't talk about auras without explaining from Alpha what this card did. Aaron, of course, you need to introduce our number 2.
So my number 2 is a card that has made me significantly happy. And, you know, we talk about certain things, you know, going back to the beginning, you know, control magic being something that they wanted us to do. And we still see to this day. And we also have effects like this one. You know, when the game was first created, they did give us ways to get cards back from the graveyard. The graveyard was never meant to be something that you could not use as an extension of yourself. And this card really exemplifies that. And has come a really, really long way and still sees play in Legacy. If you're playing Legacy Reanimator, that is a tier 1 deck, and you are running at least 4 copies of this card. I've had a lot of fun with this card, and it's just beautiful. Our number 2 is Animate Dead.
Mm-hmm. Ruben, what does it do? Good luck. Good luck.
You gotta give him the alpha version. You gotta hit him with all
am I
here we
doing
go.
The alpha version?
You do the alpha version. I'll do the new version.
I will say that the current wording of Animate Dead has more words than the alpha version.
It's true.
It currently, I believe, has 65-ish words on it.
Jesus.
Which is ridiculous. The alpha version of Animate Dead costs a colorless and a black enchant dead creature.
Nice.
Illustrated by Anson Maddox. Any creature in either player's graveyard comes into play on your side with -1 to its original power.
Ooh.
If this enchantment is removed or at end of game, target creature is returned to its owner's graveyard. Target creature may be killed as normal.
Be killed.
Yeah, so in the Reanimator Mirror, it leads to some interesting games where, like, I believe you board these out, or you board them out against, like, the Jund matchups because of Abrupt Decay, which is really, really awkward. Right. But, you know, the ability to steal something, that -1 being really, really important. At 2 mana, you know, you look at this, and this is something they wanted people to be able to do, and you're just like, wow, this is really good.
It allows them to do it from the very get-go. The first set in Magic these days, this is the actual factual enchant creature card in a graveyard. When Animate Dead enters the battlefield, if it's on the battlefield, it loses, quote, enchant creature card in a graveyard, and gains, quote, enchant creature put onto the battlefield with Animate Dead, unquote. Return enchanted creature card to the battlefield under your control and attach Animate Dead to it. When Animate Dead leaves the battlefield, that creature's controller sacrifices it. Enchanted creature gets -1/-0.
So remember earlier when we were talking about Chain of the Rocks and how clean it was?
Ooh, yeah.
And how beautifully translated the flavor gets.
Mm-hmm.
This is an example of where something is lost in the translation. Because everyone knows what you're doing. Like, right? Animate Dead, we get it. It's getting a little weaker because it's becoming zombified, and now it's on the graveyard.
Right.
Or on the battlefield from the graveyard. But the rules don't speak that language, and so you need all these words to get like 6-point font to try to encapsulate what is supposed to be happening.
I mean, in the game shop, you would hear, "Can we kill it as normal? Can you kill?" And it's like, "Yeah, you can kill it as normal." So it's right there on the card. Like, all right, thanks. Glad we cleared that up because we wouldn't know otherwise.
So, some interesting factoids about Animate Dead: it is the most popular aura in Commander.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
I mean, you get 4 graveyards to choose from, including your own.
You're lucky they printed it 1,000,000 times.
Right. It is still in the cube. And it is one of only 2 auras that I could find that made the top 128 of the MTG bracket, the other one being Treachery.
Nice.
Recently reprinted of my favorite R2 Bastion de Harme. That was the cycle that told the story of the Sun Titan, where like the Terminate killed it, and then you brought it back with the Animate dead, and that was. And you can also, I think, the Reanimate was an extension of that too, which was really cool. And he signed them at GP Louisville for me.
Very nice. All right, so let's move on here to number 1. And Ruben, it certainly feels like you will be you'll be up to telling us about number 1.
So there's a lot of good auras. There's a lot of fine auras.
Fine.
There aren't a lot of great auras. And certainly few auras that have won Pro Tours. We talked about Control Magic. We talked about Curious Obsession and Spreading Seas and Confiscate. There are a couple others, your Squirrel Nests, your Moldavine Cloaks, Giant Strength, Threads of Disloyalty. But it doesn't happen a lot. You don't have a ton of expensive auras that maintain their price long after they were printed. This particular one was originally printed in Rise of the Eldrazi many, many years ago, long before any of us were even born. And certainly, rarely, if ever, do you see an aura so powerful that it must be banned in a format. And that is where we find Splinter Twin, the only aura to be banned in any format ever.
Oh my goodness. Aaron, what does Splinter Twin do?
So Splinter Twin is 2 colorless and 2 red. It was originally printed in Rise of Eldrazi. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature has tap it. Put a token that's a copy of this creature onto the battlefield. That token has haste and exile it at the beginning of the next end step. So this was the namesake for the Splinter Twin combo. You would pair this with either Pestermite or Deceiver Exarch, and you would make infinite tokens, and you would win the game that way. This was a test that you had to pass if you wanted to play Modern, of do you have a way to deal with this? And if you don't, then you're just going to die. And so Splinter Twin also had a really neat ability to sort of pivot into just a blue-red control deck. A lot of times they would just board in Keranos, or they might board in a Batterskull. And so this was just an incredibly versatile deck. We've also seen them do things with Restoration Angel. We've seen them do things with even just putting on a Snapcaster Mage is fine. You can still just bounce something.
I've put a Splinter Twin on many an Acidic Slime and many an Obstinate Baloth and Titans and just
Yeah, you don't even have to be doing it on the best creature. You can still put it on like an average fine creature and it's still really good. And it just got to the point where the deck was just really difficult to deal with. Even with answers like Abrupt Decay and things of that nature, there was just very little that kept the deck down. And so it was able to survive all of these tools that were being printed to beat it. And then eventually it did get put down along with a Summer Bloom, I believe.
Yes.
And just people to this day are still saying unban Splinter Twin. Seeing how it's funny to look back on it and see how overpowered Modern is now. And people still say maybe it'd be fine.
Right.
You know? Like, what do you guys think?
I think it's 100% unbannable at this point. The fact that we have a Planeswalker that has +2 make a Mox Sapphire and +1 Beast Within, that's your 3-mana Planeswalker, but this 4-mana enchantment's just a bridge too far. It's fine. I remember...
I would like the Oko players to get what's coming to them when they play an Oko and then their opponent goes, fine, make a food, I'll play my Deceiver Exarch and kill you. Like, that is kind of some comeuppance for that.
Yes.
That card's not fine in Modern.
I mean, it's ridiculous. It's powerful. It's super powerful, but so is Stoneforge Mystic, which didn't not do nothing. People were scared to death of Jace the Mind Sculptor. Didn't do a whole lot. Did a little, didn't do a whole lot. I don't remember the exact timing. I want to say something like Splinter Twin was spoiled on like a Friday. And Patrick Chapin on Monday wrote the article that said, does Wizards realize what they just did? He's like, Deceiver Exarch, Splinter Twin. Yeah, in Standard. And like both of those cards sold out immediately. It became like the best thing you could do. Tier 1, like, didn't matter. Just
and not
infinite
only
win.
That, there were multiple versions because it's a package, right? You just have Deceiver Exarch and Splinter Twin in your deck. The rest of the deck could be a blue-white control deck. The rest of the deck could be a red-blue deck that only focuses on finding the combo with things like Shrine, the Blue Shrine, that would like look at the top number of cards of your library. I put it in Birthing Pod, just Twin Pod, where I was playing Totem Guide Heartbeasts to find my Splinter Twins. Yeah, that's a magic card. You know, you could put this, and that's the thing with Modern too, is eventually the format got to the point where it was like you could put this 8-card package, much like the Stoneforge package. You can put these 8 cards in any deck, and it can be a viable archetype. And so it's possible. I could see it, But here's the problem: is the Oko decks start putting Deceiver, Exarch, and Splinter Twin in the Oko decks.
Oh, shut up!
Have you seen these new modern decks that are just like, let's just put all the good cards in a deck together?
I've seen some standard decks try that too. I've seen some standard decks trying to put like Niv Mizzet in there with fires, but they also have like the cat combo with the ovens and stuff. And
There's a deck I saw recently that had Urza and Oko and Primeval Titan and Arkham's Astrolabe. Yeah, it was a lot.
Well, as I understand it, the Modern Open was ran over with Urza and Oko this past weekend. So, like, give the, okay, maybe there's an Oko Splinter Twin thing because Oko's the best Planeswalker of all time, not close.
Modern, you know what? I'll give him this. It would not be the worst thing to happen to the format if Splinter Twin got unbanned. I think that Modern needs to get rid of, every format needs to get rid of Oko, but Modern can have a little Splinter Twin as a treat.
Like, I think Splinter Twin is better to unban than Birthing Pod.
For sure. 100%.
I just think, over the course of the infinite magics, we're going to get better and better creatures. Splinter Twin is Splinter Twin is Splinter Twin.
We're not going to get better Deceiver Exarchs.
Right. Yeah. They're not going to. So, and because they know these types of interactions exist, but that means we have our top 10 auras. You will see them on the screen right now for your review. Take a look at my list, Aaron's list, Ruben's top 10. And we want to hear from you about what card we did not talk about. And we'll select our favorite to win a $50 gift certificate to CoolStuffInc.com. But before we go, I want to thank my co-host. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ruben.
Thank you. I really like the energy, the aura of this episode.
Oh, God. The aura. Go to our final slide. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, my co-host, Aaron Campbell and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching or listening, and I hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMikes. Follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at Twitch.tv at MagicMikes, on Twitter at MagicMikesCast, our Magic Mike subreddit, and like the Magic Mikes page on Facebook. Talk to us privately at MagicMikesPodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at MagicMikesPodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes and Spotify. Or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.